Ladies and gentlemen, a man doesn't decide to spend his life with someone based on fleeting emotions or temporary excitement. While those things might catch his attention in the beginning, what truly shapes his vision for the future is how he feels when he's around you consistently, and more importantly, how you consistently show up in his life. Emotional consistency is the often overlooked habit that becomes the bedrock of deep connection and enduring trust. And for a man who's genuinely seeking a lifelong partner, that consistency becomes a signal, quiet but powerful, that you are safe, dependable, and capable of weathering life's storms together. In today's culture where unpredictability is often glamorized, where people confuse volatility with intensity and drama with passion, emotional consistency might seem boring to some, but it's not boring, it's rare and it's powerful. Because when everything in life is uncertain, when a man is fighting his own battles in the world, what he wants, what he needs, is to know that he's not coming home to another battlefield. He's looking for peace, for order, for a partner who doesn't change like the wind depending on mood, circumstance, or insecurity. Emotional consistency becomes a refuge, a stabilizing force. But that doesn't mean being emotionless. It doesn't mean suppressing feelings or never expressing pain, frustration, or disappointment. Emotional consistency is not about always being happy. It's about being stable. It's about being rooted in who you are and able to navigate your emotional world without letting it dominate the relationship. It means you know how to feel deeply without lashing out recklessly. It means your partner can trust that your reactions won't be disproportionate to the situation. He can trust that he won't be punished every time life gets difficult. That's huge. Trust isn't built during the good days. It's forged in the tension of hard conversations, in moments of misunderstanding, in the heat of stress and uncertainty. Emotional consistency says, I can handle this. I won't crumble. I won't turn on you. I'm here to work through this with you. And when a man sees that over and over again, not just once, not just when you're in the honeymoon phase, but as a consistent trait, you go from being someone he's dating to someone he sees building a life with. Because trust isn't a feeling, it's a pattern. Think about how most people behave in relationships. One day they're warm and loving, the next cold and distant. One argument and they threaten to leave. A small misunderstanding and the silent treatment begins. Over time, this roller coaster becomes exhausting and it signals instability, not commitment. A man who is serious about the future, about family, about building something meaningful, he doesn't want to invest in someone who makes him question where he stands all the time. He doesn't want love that's conditional on perfection. He wants to know that even when things go sideways, the person beside him won't. Emotional consistency doesn't mean you don't feel deeply. It means you've developed the maturity to manage those feelings. That kind of emotional self-leadership is incredibly attractive to a man with vision. It shows that you're not ruled by your impulses, that you're not constantly testing the relationship, that you're not playing games to get attention or prove your worth. You show up the same in crisis as you do in calm. And that, paradoxically, is what gives a man the confidence to go deeper, to commit, because he sees that you're not going to betray the relationship just because something got hard. There's also a deeper truth at play. Emotional consistency is a reflection of inner alignment. It shows that who you are internally and who you present externally are not two separate things. You're not pretending to be easygoing just to be liked. You're not acting supportive just to get praise. You're not being kind only when you get your way. You're the same person when he's watching and when he's not. That integrity shines through, and over time it becomes a lighthouse for a man navigating the uncertainties of life and love. We also have to acknowledge the weight a man carries when he's looking for a wife. It's not just about chemistry. It's about legacy. It's about children, home, stability. It's about sharing his fears, his failures, his ambitions with someone who won't weaponize his vulnerability. Emotional consistency is what tells him you can share your full self with me and I won't flinch, I won't run, I won't use it against you. That kind of trust isn't built through words. It's built through repetition, through watching you respond not once, but again and again with grace, strength, and steadiness. In a world that constantly rewards extremes, instant gratification, viral moments, impulsive behavior, emotional consistency is revolutionary. It's quiet, it's slow, but it creates the kind of safety that lets a man exhale. It tells him he doesn't have to perform all the time. He doesn't have to hide. He can just be, and he'll still be respected, supported, and loved. And that's what makes emotional consistency so magnetic. Because when a man finds a woman who gives him peace, not anxiety, stability, not confusion, encouragement, not judgment, she becomes irreplaceable. Not because she's perfect, but because she's safe. Safe emotionally, safe relationally, safe spiritually. And in that safety, love doesn't just survive, it deepens, it grows, it roots itself in something real. So if you want to be seen as a future wife, not just a momentary thrill, cultivate emotional consistency. Don't be a storm he has to survive. Be the calm he looks forward to. Let your presence speak before your words ever do. Let your steadiness be the reason he stops searching. Because in a world full of noise, the woman who can bring peace will always stand out. Attraction is often misunderstood. In the early stages of getting to know someone, it's easy to believe that beauty alone is what pulls a man in and keeps him there. And to a degree, that's true. Physical appearance might spark interest. It might create the first magnetism, the first glance, the first compliment. But the deeper truth is this. Beauty can open a door, but it's what's behind that door, your character, your presence, your energy, that makes a man want to stay, invest, and imagine a future with you. We've all seen it. A man dates someone who turns heads. She's everything the world tells us is attractive, stylish, fit, charismatic. But months go by and he starts to withdraw. He starts to feel hesitant. Not because her looks faded, they didn't, but because something was missing, or maybe something was off. The outside was compelling, but the inside felt chaotic, unpredictable, or exhausting. That disconnect becomes too loud to ignore. And this happens all the time, not because beauty isn't valued, but because beauty alone doesn't build trust, and it certainly doesn't build a life. What draws a man deeper, what shifts his mindset from this is fun to this is forever, is the quality of the atmosphere a woman brings into his life. Is it grounding? Is it safe? Is it inspiring? Does she bring clarity or confusion, peace or pressure? A man pays attention to those things, often without being fully conscious of it, but over time those patterns create a feeling, and that feeling becomes the filter through which he decides whether this is someone he simply enjoys or someone he can build a future with. True attractiveness is layered. It's not just how you look when you walk in a room, it's how you carry yourself when things don't go your way. It's how you speak about others. It's how you handle disagreement. It's how emotionally available and grounded you are when there's pressure. These moments reveal more than makeup or outfits ever could. They show him who you really are. And if he's a man with maturity and vision, that's what he's paying attention to. You see, passion is easy to spark, but when a man thinks about commitment, he starts thinking differently. He's not just asking, am I attracted to her? He's asking, can I build with her? Can I trust her in hard times? Does she have my back when I'm not at my best? These are the questions that shape long-term decisions. And they're rarely answered by looks alone. They're answered by behavior, by presence, by how a woman shows up under pressure, not just in perfection. This is why women who embody emotional intelligence, grace, and inner peace often become unforgettable, because those qualities are felt more than seen. They linger in a man's mind, not because they're loud or attention-seeking, but because they're rare. When a woman is grounded in herself, when she's not performing or pretending or chasing validation, it's deeply attractive, not in a flashy way, but in a way that speaks to something ancient and fundamental inside a man. He sees in her the possibility of home, not chaos, not ego, not drama, just something real and steady. A lot of people chase beauty without depth and then wonder why the relationship lacks security. But the truth is, no amount of physical attraction can cover for emotional volatility, manipulation, or lack of inner stability. You can be the most beautiful woman in the room, but if every disagreement turns into a war, if every insecurity turns into a weapon, if your energy leaves a man feeling drained instead of uplifted, then that beauty starts to fade, at least in his eyes. Not because it's not there, but because it's overshadowed by tension. On the other hand, when a man finds a woman who brings peace, consistency, warmth, and clarity, it changes him. It softens him. It awakens a protective instinct in him, not just toward her, but toward the life they could build together. He stops looking for the next best thing. He starts thinking legacy, not just chemistry. Because now he's not just attracted, he's anchored. And anchoring is what every meaningful relationship needs to survive the inevitable storms of life. Another truth worth exploring is that men, especially good, self-aware, growth-oriented men, are not looking for someone to entertain them. They're looking for someone to partner with them. That means a woman who thinks deeply, who understands herself, who can nurture and challenge in equal measure, who respects herself and expects respect in return. That's magnetic. That kind of woman doesn't just catch his eye, she reshapes his priorities, because in her he sees someone who doesn't just make him feel good, she makes him want to be good, to be better, to show up. There's something profoundly attractive about a woman who doesn't need attention to validate her worth, who isn't performing for approval, but instead radiates a quiet confidence. She listens well, speaks with intention, carries herself with dignity. That kind of presence is not common, and a man who recognizes it understands that it's not something you let slip away. Not because she needs him, but because her presence makes life better, more focused, more meaningful. That's when he starts imagining what it would be like to come home to her, to build with her, to trust her with his dreams and disappointments. And this is where many women don't realize the full extent of their influence. The way you regulate your own emotions, the way you speak life instead of criticism, the way you handle conflict. It doesn't just affect the relationship, it affects how he sees himself. A woman who brings emotional stability and depth actually makes him feel more grounded, more capable. He associates her presence with clarity, not confusion, with progress, not setbacks. That's not just attractive, that's irreplaceable. So yes, beauty matters, but the kind of beauty that endures, the kind that makes a man think wife, not just girlfriend, is the beauty of character, of peace, of self-awareness. It's the ability to stay grounded in moments of pressure, to love without losing yourself, to speak truth with kindness, to hold space without needing to dominate it. These are the traits that make a woman unforgettable in the eyes of a man who's looking for more than surface. If you want to be seen as more than a passing chapter in a man's life, if you want to be his choice, not his chance, don't just ask how you look. Ask how you make him feel when he's around you. Does he feel calm or tense, inspired or diminished, safe or on edge? Because beauty may bring him closer, but it's your inner world, your emotional presence that determines whether he stays. The truth is, when you become the kind of woman who brings out the best in a man, not by fixing him, but by being whole yourself, you stop chasing commitment. You become the kind of person commitment naturally moves toward. There's a harsh truth most people eventually learn about relationships. Chaos kills connection. It might excite people in the beginning. It might even feel passionate or dramatic or intense. But over time, it erodes trust, drains emotional energy, and creates a pattern where love becomes associated with instability. And no man looking for a future wants to build one with a person who feels like emotional quicksand. This is why calm attracts and chaos repels. Because in the long run, the man who's thinking beyond the moment is looking for peace, not just passion. In relationships, emotional chaos doesn't always look like screaming or massive blowouts. Sometimes it shows up as unpredictability, passive aggressiveness, manipulation, the silent treatment, emotional withdrawal, or guilt tripping. It can be subtle, but it's felt. When a man starts feeling like he has to walk on eggshells, overthink every word, or constantly manage someone else's reactions, it stops feeling like love and starts feeling like a job. And no matter how attractive someone is, no matter how strong the chemistry, if a relationship becomes emotionally expensive, he will begin to detach. Calm, on the other hand, isn't boring, it's safe. And safe doesn't mean weak. It means that your presence gives him space to be honest, to be imperfect, to be human. It means you're not constantly shifting moods depending on whether he says the exact right thing or makes every move perfectly. It means he knows who he's coming home to, not someone who changes with the wind, but someone who brings a kind of emotional stability that he can lean on. And in a world that's already chaotic, a woman who carries calm becomes that calm doesn't mean you never get upset. It doesn't mean you suppress your emotions or pretend to be okay with things that aren't. It means that even in frustration, even in conflict, you don't lose your center. You don't attack to win. You don't use emotional outbursts to control or punish. Instead, you communicate. You stay grounded. You express needs without turning them into ultimatums. This doesn't just feel mature, it feels respectful. And respect builds attraction in a much deeper way than any surface level trait ever could. There is an energy that calm people carry. It's the energy of emotional self-leadership. When you're calm, you show that you have the ability to regulate your own internal state instead of expecting someone else to manage it for you. That's powerful. It tells a man that you're not dependent on him for your happiness and that you're not going to blame him every time something in your world feels off. That kind of ownership creates admiration, because instead of becoming another problem he has to solve, you become a partner who helps solve problems with him. Men notice this, especially men who are serious about life. They don't just want a girlfriend, they want a teammate, someone who doesn't escalate every situation but brings clarity to it, someone who doesn't spin out over small things but helps put things in perspective. That doesn't mean you're never emotional, but it means your emotions don't become the dictator of the relationship. You know how to feel without letting feelings control every conversation. That's rare, and it creates a magnetic contrast in a world where emotional reactivity is normalized and even encouraged. Now, let's talk about the way chaos is sometimes mistaken for passion. It's easy to romanticize the ups and downs, the arguments followed by intense makeups, the constant drama. Some people grew up associating unpredictability with love, so they mistake emotional turbulence for connection. But the truth is, healthy love is not chaotic, it's steady, it's not an emotional roller coaster, it's a rhythm. And the kind of man who is building a life, a career, maybe even thinking about being a husband or father, he's not going to choose someone who turns every disagreement into emotional warfare. When you show a man that you can handle conflict with maturity and grace, that you don't create problems where there are none, and that you don't react to every inconvenience with a storm of emotion, he starts to see you differently. You stop being just someone he enjoys spending time with. You become someone he trusts. And trust is the currency of commitment. Without it, nothing lasts. With it, everything becomes possible. It's not the loudest emotion that wins, it's the most consistent one. Let's also be clear, calm doesn't mean being passive or soft-spoken all the time. It doesn't mean sacrificing your voice. It means knowing when and how to use it. It means picking your battles wisely. It means knowing that not every disagreement needs to become a power struggle. Some of the strongest women are the calmest, not because they lack passion, but because they've mastered control over their reaction. They don't need to prove their power by yelling. Their presence speaks louder than their words, and that presence is what a man remembers when he's thinking about a future. There's something incredibly attractive about a woman who knows herself so well that she doesn't get thrown off by everything that happens around her. She doesn't seek drama for validation. She doesn't use emotional manipulation to get attention. She doesn't need to keep a man guessing to feel desired. She brings peace. She speaks with intention. She listens without preparing a counterattack. That's the kind of energy that stays with a man, not because it's flashy, but because it's trustworthy. And trust, once again, is the bridge between attraction and lasting connection. A man who's ready to build something real will gravitate toward calm, not because he's afraid of strong women, but because he knows strength without control is dangerous. He wants someone who can challenge him, yes, but who does it in a way that's constructive, not destructive. He wants someone who can disagree without disrespect, someone who knows how to hold tension without turning it into chaos. When a man sees that kind of calm in a woman, he sees the possibility of not just a relationship, but a life that feels steady and supported. Chaos might catch attention, but calm earns respect, and respect turns into trust. Trust turns into intimacy. Intimacy turns into commitment. That's the progression that matters. If you want to be someone a man sees as a future wife, not just a momentary escape, you need to ask what kind of energy you bring into his life. Do you bring more confusion or more clarity? Do you make him feel more anxious or more grounded? Do you turn little things into crises, or do you know how to de-escalate and communicate with clarity? Your energy teaches people how to treat you. It sets the tone for the relationship. When a man sees that you consistently bring calm, that you don't let emotions lead you into sabotage, that you handle pressure without creating more of it, he begins to trust your leadership in the relationship, even if he doesn't use those words. He begins to see you not as someone to manage, but as someone to rely on. And that shift changes everything. In the end, calm isn't just attractive, it's transformational. It creates space for love to breathe. It invites honesty. It allows growth. It makes room for real partnership. And when a man finds a woman who doesn't add to the chaos of his life, but instead brings balance, focus, and peace, she becomes someone he doesn't want to let go of. Not because she demands it, but because her calmness, of the most overlooked yet powerful traits that makes a man see a woman as someone he could spend his life with, is her ability to hold space for his growth without trying to control, fix, or diminish him. This might sound simple, but it's not. It requires emotional maturity, patience, self-respect, and the rare ability to see a person not only for who they are now, but also for who they are becoming. Men, especially those who are serious about life, deeply value a partner who allows them to evolve without making them feel like they're constantly being evaluated or falling short. When a man is with a woman who genuinely supports his growth, it gives him permission to be both strong and vulnerable, and that combination is where true intimacy lives. A woman who believes in his potential, not just in theory, but in how she interacts with him daily, becomes unforgettable, not because she idolizes him, not because she tolerates bad behavior, but because she holds him accountable without shaming him. Because she inspires, not controls. She encourages, not pressures. She builds alongside him, not above him. This is the kind of influence that sticks in a man's mind and reshapes how he sees partnership. Every man has moments of doubt, confusion, insecurity, and failure. In those moments, he's looking, consciously or unconsciously, to see how the woman beside him responds. Does she weaponize his vulnerability? Does she compare him to others? Does she criticize his pace of progress? Or does she hold a quiet belief in who he is and what he's capable of becoming? That belief is not blind loyalty, it's strength. And it becomes the fuel for growth when his own tank is running low. Many relationships falter because one or both people try to force transformation on the other. But sustainable growth never happens through pressure. It happens in environments where someone feels seen, supported, and challenged with respect. A woman who can say, "I see you, and I see more in you than even you might see right now," without turning that into control or judgment, creates a dynamic where a man wants to rise. Not because she nags, not because she manipulates, but because her faith in him is quiet, steady, and real. And here's the thing, belief isn't just something you say, it's something you show. You show it in the way you listen when he shares his fears. You show it in the way you don't panic when he hits a low point. You show it in the way you ask questions that draw out his vision rather than constantly critiquing where he is. And that doesn't mean you ignore red flags or lower your standards. It means you see the bigger picture and you help him see it too. There's a deep psychological impact when a man feels like the woman he loves doesn't trust him to grow. It starts to chip away at his confidence. He may not say it, but he feels it. And over time, that can cause resentment, disconnection, or withdrawal. On the other hand, when he feels that his woman believes in him, not in some performative Instagram token way, but through her presence, her tone, her consistency, it makes him braver. It makes him want to take risks, to lead, to fight through challenges, because he knows he's not alone, because her belief becomes a mirror in which he starts to see a stronger version of himself. The most powerful women in a man's life are often not the loudest or the flashiest. They're the ones who held space for him when he was still finding his voice. They're the ones who saw value in him when he hadn't yet proven it to the world. They're the ones who challenged him, not with shame, but with love. They knew when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to push and when to step back. They didn't sacrifice their standards, but they also didn't confuse support with control. That balance is rare, and it makes a woman unforgettable. Now, it's important to note that holding space for a man's growth doesn't mean becoming his emotional crutch. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect or excusing immaturity. It means choosing to align yourself with someone who is already on the path, who wants to grow, who takes responsibility for himself, and then becoming someone who nourishes that journey rather than hindering it. There's no wisdom in attaching yourself to potential that has no desire to be actualized. But when you find a man who's willing to grow, your belief in him becomes a form of partnership that's deeper than love alone. There's also something incredibly attractive to a man about a woman who is secure enough in herself to not need to be above him in order to feel valuable. A woman who is growing in her own right, who is building her own life, and who still has the space to encourage someone else's evolution. That's a woman who commands respect because she's not competing, she's not micromanaging. She's walking beside him with strength, not looking for ways to fix him to feel in control. That level of mutual growth creates a kind of intimacy that outlasts infatuation. When both people are getting better, not just in their careers or their bodies, but in how they listen, how they speak, how they forgive, how they handle disappointment, that relationship becomes unshakable. And the woman who sets the tone for that by being emotionally grounded and genuinely supportive is the woman who becomes central to a man's vision for the future. He starts to think, she makes me better, not in a dependent way, but in a sharpening, expansive way. He thinks, she sees me clearly, but doesn't shrink me to who I am today. He remembers how she held him through uncertainty, how she didn't panic when he was lost, how she challenged him without humiliating him. And those memories become foundations, not because she was perfect, but because she was present, real, strong, and encouraging in the moments that mattered most. That's what makes a woman stand out, not her resume, not her beauty, not how loudly she talks about self-love, but her ability to show up with grace, wisdom, and belief, not just when things are easy, but when growth gets messy. She's not trying to mold him into her version of success. She's not making love transactional. She's loving in a way that elevates not just the relationship, but both people involved. In the end, a man who's looking for a partner, not just a pretty face, will always be drawn to the woman who becomes a mirror of his best self. Someone who reflects back not just who he is, but who he's capable of becoming. And the woman who can do that without losing herself in the process. She's not just someone he dates, she's someone he builds a legacy with, makes the chaos of life feel less overwhelming, and her presence becomes the quiet answer to a question he didn't know he was asking.